People say a man dies only once. But out here in the Wild West, that's a lie. Some men die when they bury their wife. Some die when their home turns to ash. Some die when their name is taken from them. And some die when a town decides they're easier to blame than the truth itself. Eli Mercer had died all 4 of those deaths. And tonight, as the sun bled into the desert, he was riding back to the town that killed him. But they had no idea what kind of man was returning. The desert keeps its secrets in the way it swallows sound. It remembers what men try to forget. And by dusk, the land becomes a mirror, red, clean, and final. When a man rides through a wasteland with a hollow in his chest, the world answers him with silence. Eli Mercer rode toward the horizon like a sentence carried by a tired horse. The sun bled into the sky behind him, turning his shadow into a long dark scar across the earth. He rode with a purpose buried as deep as his pain, and with memories that moved faster than any horse ever could. They came without permission, memories of heat, of flame, of a woman's voice crying his name through the roar of fire. He pressed his jaw tightly and kept riding. Once, Eli Mercer had a home. Once, laughter warmed those walls and love scented the air. But fire came like a thief in the night, and the world took everything from him. His hands had dug through ashes. His voice had split as he called for May, the woman who trusted him with her whole heart. The desert answered him with nothing. He had been left for dead. Years later, the man who rode back toward the town was no longer whole. He believed in balance, not redemption. If something was taken, something had to be paid. That was all. As he approached Red Hollow, the wind turned cold. The town crouched below the ridge like a guilty thing. Eli slowed his horse and stared down at it, the saloon leaning like it wanted to collapse from shame, the buckled porches, the signs that creaked with every whisper of wind. He passed through the streets quietly. Faces watched him from the soft glow of windows, familiar faces, older, guarded, uncertain. Some recognized him, some only recognized the sorrow etched across his posture. Eli didn't go to the places he once knew. He went to the shadows instead, where a man wasn't expected to smile. In the dim of the saloon doorway, he waited and listened to the tones of conversation, the whispers of men who thought truth lived only where light touched. When he slipped behind the livery, he found what he'd been hoping for, a ledger left unattended, swollen with ink. He traced the pages with a slow, steady hand. Land transfers, bank notes, debt collections, and at the bottom of the page a scorch mark. His scorch mark. The Mercer's homestead was listed as a reclaimed property due to default. Signed by Jonas Pike. A cold truth settled in Eli's bones. Fire hadn't been an accident. It had been a business decision. He rode his rage carefully. He didn't want it to buck or break loose. Rage was only useful when held tightly, like a lantern in a mine. He went to the Pike house after dark, when town secrets stirred most loudly. Jonas Pike opened the door with a face that flickered from recognition to fear in a breath. "Eli Mercer," Jonas said, his voice dry as dust. "Never thought you'd ride back." Eli's tone was steady. "I'm not here for greetings." Inside, a fire crackled. A clock ticked. Jonas tried to make small talk, but his eyes kept flicking to the ledger Eli carried. The truth was a weight neither man wanted to look at directly. "How many names are in this book, Jonas?" Eli asked. Jonas swallowed. "Names are business." Fire was unfortunate. Eli leaned forward. "Tell me who signed." Jonas didn't answer. He didn't have to. A child's quiet gasp drifted from the staircase, small eyes watching, learning the weight of men's decisions. Guilt lived in that house like an unwelcome guest. Eli left Jonas sitting alone with his cowardice. Rain started as Eli stepped outside. It thickened quickly, turning dust into dark rivers. The storm carried the taste of judgment. He stood in the middle of the street and let his voice carry. Who burned a house? Who hid behind ink? Who took what wasn't theirs? People emerged from porches, lanterns glowing through the downpour. Some faces were pale with fear, others with anger. A woman stepped forward holding a sick child. Her voice trembled. "We trusted the law," she whispered. "We trusted men like Jonas." "Law eats people," Eli said quietly. "Especially when people feed it their names." The town stirred like a hive. And then he read the names. Jonas Pike. Henry Moore. Sheriff Dalton. Accusation moved through Red Hollow like lightning. Men stiffened. Women gasped. Secrets buried for years came clawing to the surface. Some defended themselves. Others hid. Some cried. And some, the worst of them, called for order. Not justice. Order. Order meant silencing the man who held the ledger. Men gathered inside the saloon, their eyes cold and narrow. Jonas rallied them with threats of ruin. He promised protection to anyone who stood with him. The sheriff, trembling behind his badge, muttered that Eli should never have come back. The storm outside grew violent. And then, under torchlight and rain, the mob formed. They moved down the street like a river of fire and fear. They wanted Eli Mercer, alive or dead, so long as the ledger disappeared. Eli stood in the middle of the street, soaked through, unshaken. He didn't raise his gun. He didn't speak. He let the town show its teeth. Jonas lifted a rope. But before the knot could tighten around the knight's throat, a woman cried out, the same young mother Eli had spoken to earlier. "Ask him how he saved my boy. Ask him what he risked." Others joined her. Quiet voices at first. Then louder. A storekeeper. A cattle hand. A widow who had been spared by Eli's mercy once. The mob hesitated. Truth had sharp edges. It cut through the rope. Then someone lunged. A gun fired. A man fell, screaming. Chaos broke loose like a stampede. Eli moved with precision, not to kill, but to end what needed ending. When the fighting broke, the ledger spilled across the mud, pages fluttering like wounded birds. Men scattered. Some stayed where they fell. By dawn, Red Hollow was changed forever. Eli returned to the ruins of his home. Beneath a fallen beam, he found a small brass charm, May's initial faintly engraved. In a tiny envelope, her handwriting waited for him. "If I go, remember what you love, Eli. Don't let anything make you less." His knees softened. For the first time in years, he let grief pass through him like rain through a broken roof. He promised her he would not become smaller than his pain. He kept that promise, in his own way. Before leaving, he walked through town one last time. The ledger's pages hung on doors and walls now, nailed by hands braver than his. People read them with faces full of shame or fury or sorrow. But no one looked away. At the edge of town, Jonas Pike waited for him. Blood crusted his sleeve. His eyes held the look of a man standing on the edge of his own making. "You would tear us down for your dead woman?" Jonas asked. "No," Eli said. I would tear down the lie that killed her. Jonas went for his gun. He never drew it. By nightfall, the ledger lay open in the town square, and Jonas lay where the cliff received him. His fall echoed long after the storm passed. Red Hollow would spend years repairing what men like Jonas had done. But Eli did not stay to watch. Truth wasn't something he wanted to live beside. He returned to the ruins of his homestead, placed May's brass charm into the soil where her garden once grew, and whispered a vow only the earth would hear. Then he mounted his horse and rode into the horizon, carrying the memory of fire and a promise made to a woman he could never forget. They say justice wears many faces. In Red Hollow, it wore the face of a tired man with ash under his nails and a brass charm in his fist. And the desert swallowed his silhouette as the sky burned around him. Yeehaw, partners! Saddle up for more untold tales of the Wild West. Smash that like, subscribe, and share button to keep the frontier alive.